Welcome everyone to a spoiler-filled review of Star Trek Picard Season 2, Episode 6, 2 for 1, even though I spent the entire time thinking it was called 2 of 1 for obvious Borg connotations. That being said, a much better title for this episode would have been How to Stretch a Season from 6 episodes into 10, because this was quite a short episode with very little of import happening, aside from about 5 minutes worth of storyline, jam-packed with a lot of standing around and talking to give our characters something to do. That being said, the things that did happen were important, although I think it could have been, basically better stretched out over 10 minutes of another episode. So we start off with Jean-Luc on the ground. We hear people, screaming, Admiral, Admiral, Jean-Luc, oh my god, he's bleeding from the mouth in his beautiful tux. And then we flash back 34 minutes earlier. And then we have Picard speaking with, well, I can't just call him Picard because there is now more than one Picard in this series. Jean-Luc speaking to not Laris or Tallinn, and she wants to know why he keeps calling her Laris. He basically lies to her, says, oh, she's just somebody I knew, nobody important. And then not Laris says, oh, well, now I know what you look like when you lie. And the way she said that was kind of interesting to me. I can't tell if she's trying to hide her Irish accent here and speak in a more Americanized English, or if she's just not playing it up as much as she did when she was a Romulan. Can't really tell, but we'll go on and see. Anyways, that was a nice little short exchange, I guess. Then we cut to Borg Queen, Harvey, whatever, speaking with Agnes here. I'm calling her Harvey if you haven't seen any of my prior reviews on this, because she seems to be playing a similar role to what Scorpius did to Crichton's head in Farscape. And he put a copy of himself in Crichton's head. This isn't necessarily a copy of the Borg Queen, but she is herself inside Agnes Jurati's head, and playing a sort of devil on her shoulder, trying to take control kind of role. Anyways, they're locked up. Jurati has to escape from these security guards in order to input the rest of the crew's information so they can get in. Found it a little odd that she's actually having a conversation not only with the Borg Queen, but with Picard and the rest in her earpiece about 2.4 feet away from the security guards. None of them give a crap that she's talking. I mean, she's clearly not talking to herself. She's like, oh yes, I will complete the mission. Give me 60 seconds. And they're just like, do, whatever. That was a little weird. I don't know what was going on. Then we cut to, again, a little Picard on the table hooked up. So they keep getting these little flash forwards to the end of the episode. They did that in another episode. I don't know. It's not really building tension. It's just, I think, again, trying to stretch out more story than we need. Then they cut back and they're milling about the party, and we see Renee Picard taking some photos with this SpaceX NASA-ish people. Obviously, she's looking good here in this moon. She's, looking like she's doing well mentally, and Tallinn tells Picard that she's got a brave face. She's able to pretend she's doing well even when she's not. So they're watching over her. It's great. Tallinn mentioned she's been watching over her for 24 years. So it seems like it's probably just about her entire life. And Tallinn has been doing what else? I mean, I can't imagine it's a full-time job to just monitor this woman. So what else has Tallinn been doing on Earth? I don't know. I kind of have a feeling Star Trek writers and people are trying to play up this assignment Earth thing in order to give us a spin-off series. I don't know if that's what they're doing, but I kind of have a hunch they might be trying to backdoor pilot from 60 years ago. Anyways, then we've got this cool shot of the Borg Queen showing up in the reflection, because we're still messing around in Jurati's head. She's escaped. She's entered the people. Now they're all in the party, just, having a time. There's this shot of whiskey. I thought it was actually going to be something important to Star Trek, so I took a look. Nope, it's an actual whiskey. It's an actual brand. It's an actual small distiller, so I don't know what the deal with that. Maybe somebody who works on the show has something to do with them, or it's just a whiskey they like. Fun times all around. Then we get pretty much the only thing we see of Annika Hansen doing the entire episode. She is mingling well, and Raffi says that, well, it's nice to see her without the influence of the Borg stuff weighing her down. It is nice. She's kind of one of the best things about these 2 seasons of Picard so far. Her and I think Rios does a great job too. So it's great to see her, but she has nothing to do this episode. She's pretty much wasted. And then we see Raffi sees Elnor. Is it Elnor? Is it another illusion? What the hell's going on with Raffi? She seems to be going through some problems here, and I think this is more just a case of yeah, we can bill Elnor as a full-time cast member if we have him show up for 2 seconds in each episode as an illusion. Why not? Then we go over to Jurati and Rios. They have a nice little exchange. Obviously, she hasn't been paying attention to her communicator for whatever reason. She's too enamored with the Borg Queen and getting drunk, and then the Borg Queen's kind of giving her a little run for her money as far as taking control of her body, makes her kiss Rios, gives her the added strength. So the Borg Queen isn't just a silent passenger. She is getting a little play inside Jurati's body. Ooh, Jurati's body. Nice. Then we cut back to this scene. It's the Anjo X1. It is a nice looking party. Not much has been going on, though, so far. We just got a lot of mingling and conversations and not much forward momentum to the story. Then, who should walk in but Adam Soong? Picard is a little taken aback. He's like, "What? Who are you?" I don't believe he plays his card of, "I'm Jean-Luc Picard," as he has with several other characters this season, because that wouldn't mean anything, although it hasn't in the past. And Adam Soong is basically like, "Oh, we've got a mutual friend. Q, I'm here to stop Renee Picard, and you need to stay out of my way." Then we find out Soong has donated a crap ton of money to the project, and he's now on the board. What we found out later is a little interesting, because it kind of seems like they're playing up Adam Soong as some sort of almost war criminal, and, a sanctioned serial geneticist doing mad experiments, but here he seems like a respected member of society who's, well known and giving a lot of money. So I don't know what the plan is here. It seems a little odd that he's 1 minute being treated as such a respectful guy, and the next minute he's kind of this unhinged evil doctor, but it is what it is. Then we cut back to the Borg Queen saying, "I'm going to take control, do a little something for you, and we're going to create that diversion everybody seems to think we need." I don't know exactly how they described it. She creates an EMP from her nanoprobes that shut out the lights. I'm not entirely sure what that was all about, but then we proceed to have a scene where Jurati performs. She sings a little Pat Benatar song, a little show tuned up, a little partied up, and she creates a distraction that our characters need to stop Jean-Luc from being arrested by security, because Dr. Soong said that he's not a good person and needs to be taken care of. It was a fine song. She has a good voice. She did a well job. She did a good job of singing. Kind of reminded me of when, what's her name? Monica Hansen, as 7 of 9 at the time, was put in that holodeck program in Voyager, and she had to sing. Would have been cool if we got to see her sing again, but I guess they needed, another thing for Jurati to do. Monica had nothing to do in this episode. I think it would have been great if she was the one up there singing. Just me, though. Then at the end of the performance, the Borg Queen says, "Aha, you've fallen into my trap card, because I actually needed you to feel those endorphins so I could take control of your body. Those stress hormones you were feeling earlier were suppressing me. Those endorphins you just felt from singing in front of the crowd allowed me to take control of Jurati's body." Ha 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 ha. Oh boy. Then we cut back to the two Picards finally meeting. Renee Picard and Jean-Luc Picard. Obviously, he doesn't tell her who he is. He's more of a, fear is bad, but you need to deal with fear and look up. Tell me about that starship to protect yourself from the fear. And it was, fine. Wasn't really the best speech ever, but he seems to talk her into, continuing on with the mission. It was, I guess, a nice scene between ancestors, even though she doesn't know who he is. And then they go back and forth, have this little conversation. She's like, "Oh, you need to join me on this mission to Europa because, I feel like I could use your pep talks." And it's basically a whole Kingdom Hearts is light sort of situation. Then he's like, "Oh, by the way, I was actually sent here to collect you so you can take pictures with the crew the mission crew, as well as Dr. Jemison, who I pretty much think is probably supposed to be Mae Jemison, who has appeared in Star Trek before. She was the first black female astronaut into space, so kind of a nice callback. I don't think, and I would have to go back and look in the background, but she definitely was not shown prominently in the episode. If she actually appears again, that would have been another cool callback if she was, one of the crowd, or maybe she'll be in the next episode. I don't know, but based on how things end in this one, I doubt that'll be the case. And then Soong freaks the hell out, decides to do his job, tries to run over Renee Picard, but Jean-Luc leaps into action and takes the Tesla for himself. And this is basically, now we have caught up to the start of the episode. So Picard was laying on the ground bleeding out of his mouth because he was run over, or at least, hit by Dr. Adam Soong. Then we cut to the present time. So now that we're all caught up, basically we are in the doctor's office. Obviously, if you didn't know, this is the clinic where Rios was earlier in the season. So Teresa is there because they needed to stay off the grid. Obviously, good thing they figured that out earlier. If he hadn't had that ice subplot, well, we might not have known where to go here. So I guess it did have some sort of meaning in the story anyways. So she shocks him with the paddles, and it basically blows up her defibrillator, but it does restart his heart. Kickstart his heart. I'm going to go with that. It kickstarts his heart. Then we cut back to Corey, who is a little freaked out by the way her father's been speaking with her. He came back after running over Picard, and he's a little loopy. He's saying things that don't add up to her, so she does a Google search and finds out that he's not the great guy that she thought he was. Finds out that she is not, in fact, the first daughter. She is, in fact, the final daughter. It wasn't exactly explained if she was created from, a bunch of embryos and she was the last one, or if he was just down to the last, idea he had. But all of his other daughters have died, and they go over some of them: Persephone, Dysphonia, Artemis, a bunch of Greek names who, interestingly enough, I looked into them. So Persephone is actually another name of Kore, known as the Maiden, the daughter of Zeus and Demeter. She ended up becoming the queen of the underworld eventually. One of the other daughters, Dysphonia, was also a daughter of Demeter, but this time with Poseidon, and the fraternal twin sister of Arion, goddess of mysteries. So they did a good job of coming up with a naming convention for these people. I don't know if it's going to matter in the end, or if they're just trying to, have an interesting way of naming these people, because they've also done that with some other things, specifically Tallinn. That name comes from Egyptian mythology, which kind of meshes with Isis, who we met from the 60s episode of Simon Earth. So they're doing good jobs researching their naming conventions, but whether or not it's actually going to play into the story, I doubt it. Then, after she kind of freaks out that, oh my god, my life is a lie, that's kind of where we end things for her in that story. We cut back to, this is her seeing herself as a kid, but not remembering it. So this is how she's like, wait, how do I have none of these memories? It's because they were all a big fat lie. None of these things actually happened to you. They happened to various versions of yourself who died of the same problem you have. I do think this is probably leading credence to my thoughts that she is genetically engineered using illegal eugenics technology. I do still think that she was possibly infused with Vulcan DNA, but none of that was touched on in this episode, so we'll have to see if the next 3 or 4 episodes, this was 6, so 7, 8, 9, 10, 4 more, touch on that, because I think that might be one of the keys that we haven't seen yet. Then we cut back to, I almost said Rios. That's definitely not Rios. That is Tallinn using the similar sonic-y screwdriver device that Gary Seven used in his assignment Earth. They can't figure out why he hasn't woken up. As far as they can tell, his body is working perfectly, but he's in some sort of coma where his entire brain is lighting up. So he's not in your typical coma. He is, in essence, in some sort of memory-triggered dream thing that he can't escape. Some reason they say that's dangerous, because the longer he doesn't wake up, the harder it is to pull him out of it. I don't know what that was about, but science. They know what's going on. So she decides she's going to do a jury-rigged mind meld with him to go inside his head and figure out what's going on and pull him out. So I have a feeling next episode's going to be quite a bit like a combination of Tapestry and what was that? There was that episode of DS9 where they had to go in Sloan from Section 31's mind to get some information before he died. So I think it's going to be very similar to that as far as what we're dealing with. And Picard is actually going to have to deal with the flashbacks of what happened with his mother. From things that were mentioned in this episode, it seems like either his mother was abused or his mother dealt with some sort of depression, bipolar disorder. So I'm wondering if we're going to find out that whatever the hell Renee Picard is going through, her bipolar, schizophrenia, whatever, that's a genetic thing that's been passed down through, let's say, women in the family, because I don't really see Picard having these issues. So let's say it's a genetic quirk that affects the women of his family, similarly to how aromatic syndrome affects men in his family. I don't know. Seems like an interesting, well, I don't know if it's really interesting, but seems like something they might do. And that's kind of where we leave it. Raffi doesn't like this plan at all. She yells about it, then she gets talked out of it. I don't know. Raffi does not come across as a very stable person in these episodes. Even when she's being somewhat lucid, she then flies off the handle in the next scene. I don't know if she's poorly written or if it's leading to something, but probably based on the fact that she's seeing illusions of Elnor. If they are illusions, there's something going on with her brain that might not be right. She did do something else this episode that I thought was interesting. So when she was talking to Rios about how he fell in love with Teresa, she brings up time travel rules and, you can't be falling in love with people from the past. She was the same person who, a couple hours ago was yelling at 7 of 9 about how time travel rules were stupid and this is her life and she doesn't need to, listen to time travel rules. So again, a little flip-floppy from her. That's basically where we leave it. Oh, I did forget to mention that at the very end of the episode, we see Jurati wandering down the streets, as far as we can tell, now controlled by the Borg Queen. Don't know where that's headed. It's kind of cool. I don't understand why none of the rest of our cast seems to care that Jurati is not with them. It's like they took off. Obviously, they're in the clinic to help Picard. None of them are worried about Jurati. This is the mentally unstable woman who's murdered twice. She murdered Bruce Maddox last season. She murdered the Borg Queen to save that cop this season, was covered in blood. Now she's missing in 2024 while your main character is dying, or potentially dying. And that's another thing. Tallinn said, I have to go in Jean-Luc's head because he's the only one that has any idea about Q. First of all, I'm not buying the fact that she wouldn't know what Q is. Maybe not by that name, but she knows what Vulcans are. She seems to be pretty knowledgeable about the universe. So how could she have not even been vaguely aware that the Q continuum existed? And she said, well, nobody else knows about Q except for him. Excuse me, 7 of 9 is standing right there. She's dealt with Q at least on Voyager, not to mention all of the knowledge of the Borg that she's had from assimilated cultures and technologies and whatever. And I'm sure a hell of a lot of them had some sort of information on the Q continuum. So I would wager to think if anyone is going to know even more about the Q than Picard, it would be 7 of 9, but they, kind of brushed past that. Again, something I can live with, but come on, you're doing a disservice from all of us fans who know that 7 of 9 has had these experiences. Overall, kind of a pointless, boring episode where you could just watch, 8-minute clips of the highlights and the rest of the stuff was just there for the sake of it being there. A lot of the conversations in this party were pointless. I think that had you done what I suggested last episode and set up the entire episode or half the episode as a Ocean's 11 style heist, for lack of a better, imagining, to get into the party, and, they all have to play to different strengths and deal with the differences in the 2024 time period they're not familiar with and overcome those. That could have been fun. That could have been an interesting sort of thing, instead of coming up with a plan last episode, enacting a plan which is basically for Jurati to knock some guards out, delete their memory, and hack the system, and then they're in the party for 30 minutes just mingling, and not even mingling well. I don't know. I just found that kind of boring. It reminded me a lot of, I don't know how many of you guys might have watched any of the CW superhero shows, but if you remember the failed spin-off they did in the last season of Arrow, where they had Mia Smoke, whatever her name she was going by, Oliver Queen's daughter in the future, hanging out at a party, like as a debutante or whatever. It reminded me a lot of that. So it reminded me a lot of CW level partying. And that's not necessarily why I'm here in a Star Trek show. Anyways, 4 episodes to go as far as I know. Things kind of ramped up last episode and then kind of didn't. So I feel like next episode's going to be a detour down Picard's memory lane. And then maybe in the last couple of episodes, we'll finally get down to brass tacks about what's going on. If you haven't seen, Season 3's already been confirmed to be including the entire TNG cast, except for Pulaski, except for Yar, as far as I know, except for Wesley Crusher, as far as they announced. We'll see. So whatever is going on this season is probably going to have to be pretty well wrapped up in order to introduce a lot more returning characters. And also, if that's the case, we barely have any personality in, caring for the new characters. So are they going to be pushed to the sideline? Like I said, Rios seems like he could be capable and competent to run a ship, have his own show, but Jurati's a psychopath. She's also probably not human anymore, or at least if she is, she's probably going to be Borg Queen from now on. I don't know if they're going to bring her back from that. So we'll have to see. Anyways, I've already been talking long enough. Over 22 minutes for an episode that didn't even need to be 10. So I'm going to call it a day right now until the next time. Computer and program.